to start with, we're going to be talking about the collective MBB practices. And yesterday we learned, you probably remember this slide, we learned about the different types of collective interventions. Okay? We learned that there's conflict resolution, performance enhancement, and also culture change. So what we want to do here is have an experience here together with one of the collective practices here today. Now, one of the indications for collective intervention that we learned yesterday is that there's some kind of a collective dysfunction, okay? And people are open to change, all right? Now, this topic that we're going to be discussing here, violence in the schools, gun violence in the schools. We've had a lot of schools, a lot of kids, teachers have been shot up. And it's a sad thing. And I'm a compassionate man, so I feel emotion about that. And I don't know, but America itself, you know, there's a lot of feeling about that. And so we'd just like to begin a dialogue here. Nikki, if I could get you to write in the center, what we're going to do is we're going to follow this process right here. I'd like you to write the troubling issue right in the center. Not too big, but big enough so the camera can see it. But just go ahead and write that troubling issue in the center and put an oval around it if you would. Now this is a little different type of a mapping process because this involves all of us here. Okay? And this is our map. So it's not private on a piece of paper where no one else can see it. Everyone's going to see this, and so we put it up there, okay? And we want to keep this safe, obviously, and so, you know, we're going to agree to not have any violence. And is that all right? Okay, since we're going to be discussing violence and whatnot. And so we just want to get started. We have two mics here. When you talk, I'm going to ask you to speak into the mic so that the recording picks it up. So I just want to hear what your thoughts are on gun violence in the schools, and, you know, what do you think we ought to be doing about it? You know, just I want to get a dialogue and a discussion going with you as a group. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I'll let you decide that. Why, take a drink.
I would say taking threats seriously. With clients I've had now, I've heard some threats made in Salt Lake Valley schools, and doesn't seem like the people in charge of the schools or whatever were taking it as serious as.
So people not taking it seriously,
Yeah.
taking threats seriously, okay? Okay, well, what else?
And yet at the same time, my understanding from yesterday's event is that it wasn't necessarily any signs. I could be wrong on that. That's my understanding. And so how do we encourage a collective idea of safety and setting a very firm boundary that it's inappropriate to have any sort of violence in schools? And in addition, this idea that if something happened, there must have been signs and there must be some connection to mental health, which really, yeah. So I don't know what that looks like on the board, Nikki, but some like the connection to mental health and how people are talking about that, I think, is really what frustrates me. I don't know.
Okay, so it's frustrating that there's a connection to mental health possibly in the way people are talking about, like, oh, there's no signs. Just happened out of the blue.
Right, and obviously if someone brings a gun and into a school and does commit violence, then there like that person is not functioning right in their natural functioning, right, causing harm to other people. So something is going on, yes, but the way people are talking about it, and then contributing to this overall stigma of mental health in schools. And as a school therapist, my clients don't want me to be seen with them in the hallway because they don't want that attachment and they don't want to be called a potential school shooter. So there's that too that I'm thinking about right now.
Okay. So there's what to do about that.
My should comes in when we talk about there should be a middle of the road, win-win situation when it comes to what it seems to come back to is Second Amendment rights versus keeping kids safe, and ultimately kids need to be safe, and also people have their rights. And so where do we find that middle of the ground where safety can be held in? So my requirement is we need to keep people safe, and there needs to be a win-win situation.
So you looking for a win-win situation?
Yeah.
We want to have, you're saying we want to keep our Second Amendment rights, we have the right to bear arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm saying that there should be for both sides, because it's not being solved by saying get rid of guns and don't keep kids safe.
Okay, so you're hearing.
So I guess
Okay, we're hearing
maybe that's
both
my
things.
wish is like, all right, I wish that there was able to be communication from both sides versus the standstill that tends to be like, well, while there's a standstill, there's still kids being shot. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess the more that I learn about mind-body bridging, the more like the debate about what to do with gun violence in schools sounds like that depressor fixer dyad. You know, like put armed guards in schools. That's just going to increase violence. Arm the teachers. A teacher had a gun go off that was a concealed weapons permit holder. And it's just this like never-ending, cycle. And the storyline that seems to come out of that is like, do nothing. People just kind of give up. And I have no idea like what the solution is, but I just can view it kind of through a mind-body bridging lens. But I can feel my eye system get activated thinking about like, well, you've got to hurry up and solve that and think of something smart to say because you have a microphone, Chase.
Okay. Well, let's not worry about the mind-body bridging lens right now. But I heard you say several things right now about, put guards in the schools and arm teachers and, and then nothing happens. That's what I heard you say. Okay, others?
I would like to see them continue. So we saw youth in this last, not this school shooting yesterday, but the last one, where they're actually coming out and speaking, right? And we're starting to see young people taking control and saying, these are our schools, and this is what's happening here. So when you talk about gun violence in the schools, the one thing that has historically been missed time and time again is actively involving the young people in the policies within their school, having them have a voice, because they're the ones that are actively involved in it right now, right? So they're going to have these brilliance that those of us that are out here that want to have brilliance may or may not have. So I think really pushing that and allowing them to speak on their own terms is going to be huge in answering some of these questions, because they probably have better answers than many of us do.
So involve the young people, let them have a say, let them decide how best to solve this. Give them a voice.
I don't know that we know why gun mass shootings happen. I have heard many different answers, and I don't know that anyone knows why mass shootings have increased so I think that would be the first question I want to answer to studies. Why are they increasing? Why is this happening?
Yeah, why is it happening? What do you think ought to be done about it?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, our society and our schools, they should be somewhat together. Our society is one that violence is that's what's shown. Our schools shouldn't, and so therefore it spills over to our schools.
Okay. So society and the schools need to get together and coordinate, and it's not happening, and
They need the ideas.
wait, let's get the
The ideas of the society. They need to have the same ideas, or they need to understand that schools are they expound something that's going to happen in the future. All right, but our society's back there and on TV, radio, things like that. Violence. That's in our society. That's what I
Okay,
see.
so we have a lot of violence in our society, and, okay,
So we have a lot of violence in our society, and so it bleeds over into our schools.
okay.
So I'm saying get rid of the, so if we get rid of the violence in our society, make it a more peaceful society, then we'd make some inroads into the school violence.
So get rid of the violence in society, and, I mean, how would we go about doing that?
It's a long process.
Oh, okay. Okay, what do the rest of you think?
I'm curious about worldwide trends. I know that, and it seems like in America, every 3 weeks, 6 weeks, there's another school shooting, and it's kind of like Chase. It's kind of like Chase was saying. You get desensitized to it and kind of hopeless, like, well, I guess nothing's going to happen. But I'm wondering about worldwide trends because I know they play just as many violent video games and they watch just as many violent movies. I don't follow a whole lot of international news, but I've never even heard about a school shooting in another country.
Okay.
And there's lots of countries that play even more video games, and like the culture is more intense than ours. And so I'm not saying it doesn't have that it doesn't contribute to it, because I do feel like if we had less of that toxic stuff going into our lives and our brains, and then it probably would lessen the violence. But I'm just wondering, what's the connection worldwide? Is it, is there something within our American culture that is fueling this, or I don't know.
Yeah, so there doesn't seem to be the same connection outside the United States with violent video games, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of wondering, what is that connection? What is, we're all kind of being nice and we're kind of skirting around the issue here a little bit. But I would like to hear what you think about what we ought to be doing about this. You want to join it?
Yes.
You're welcome to join it.
I'm so angry.
You're angry. Do you need to talk right now? Do you want to be? Do you want to?
I need to calm down first. Why are you chit-chatting here like that? Gosh, what a discussion this is.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Katie.
All right. Countries that don't have as many guns don't have school shootings.
Okay, so
Right.
countries that don't have as many guns don't have as many school shootings. Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
No, I have two.
Okay,
right,
if you want to, we have a hand down over.
Yes, but thank you.
But they do.
Okay, got a mic over here.
This one. But they do have a school violence. They don't have school shootings with guns because they don't have guns, but they still have school violence. And I think that's what we want to stop, is school violence, not the tools that they use are not as important as the violence itself.
Okay,
So what I'm thinking about is the access to the type of weapons that are available in this country, and in an urban versus a rural area, it's very concerning. And
what's concerning about that?
The people have easy access; they're not locked up. That people that are suffering from mental health conditions, or they make rash decisions quickly, especially teenagers. They act without much forethought. They just want to get away from the pain. And right now, one of the things that I do is I work for Primary Children's, and so we do a memorial tribute for the children that die. And it just happens that tomorrow is the memorial tribute. So we have 51 kids who are registered for this event. And of all teenage boys in this video, die by suicide using a gun in the state of Utah. And I just think to myself, why is there such easy access to weapons? And why do we have to have access to weapons that are used in a war situation? What does it say about someone that has to have a AR-57 or whatever they're called? What is that about?
So having easy access to AR-15s and bump stocks
Or
and
whatever those things
all that jazz.
Clearly, I don't.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that I know that people use guns to get food, or they enjoy shooting, and I'm fine with that. But I think that we make guns so easily accessible that children, teenagers, whose brains are not fully formed, use the weapons in a rash moment just to solve a problem that would eventually go away. So I don't think we should have access to a certain quality of weapon, and I think we should also have certain requirements to have a weapon.
So some laws need to be altered or changed, is what you're saying?
Yeah, some laws need to be altered, changed.
Yeah. Y'all agree with that? You don't agree with that? Let's hear what you have to say.
Access to weapons. Weapons are not more accessible now than they were before, but there is more suicides and there is more gun violence maturing. So I don't think that's the answer, because that hasn't changed, but the gun violence has increased and mass shootings have increased. So if we focus on that, and I personally don't care, other than if we focus on that, we are not focusing on what could really be the answer, and I don't think that's the answer.
So you don't think that's the real issue there? There's something different, okay? Well,
I think one of the things that we could do when it comes to that is, or what comes to my mind is, we've got to drive a car, you've got to be 16, you've got to go through trainings, you've got to go through demonstrating that you know how to use a car. You can't hold a cigarette till you're 18, you can't smoke it till you're 7 or till you're 19. Renting cars is rough until you're 28 or 25. Like, you've got all these ages. Rated R movies are at 17. So we've got all these different things that that put restraints on what we feel people can be ready for. And then, so I mean, I think that having some laws stating, like, if you're 16 years old, there's really not any reason for you to have a handgun, or there's not a lot of go through hunter safety and then understand and be able to show that you understand what this weapon is, and or whatever it may be, so that you can, at age 21 or however it may be, that you can have and own a weapon and show that there's some responsibility to it, versus going down and being able to buy a gun from a pawn shop or whatever it may be, without having some sort of acknowledgement that you're just not like, wow, I think guns are cool and I should have them unlocked in my house, things along those lines.
Do you feel like there should be some tougher gun laws, but yet still have access? Okay.
And I totally agree with that. I just think that the gun culture in the United States has gotten so, like you said, so easy to access, that even if we have laws and regulations, my mind goes to, well, they're still going to get their hands on them. We still have adults that carry weapons and teenagers that live in the home and younger than teenagers living in the home. And we look at a lot of the shootings that have happened are teenagers that, like you mentioned, their brains have not fully developed, so they don't have that regulation, or education hasn't been taught to know how to use a gun, or act on impulse. So I personally feel paralyzed. I don't think that we're going to answer this question today. I think there needs to be a mass movement on education, and having more of these conversations, but also empowering people to stand up for what they believe in and keep the communication going.
So you feel paralyzed, you don't feel like we're going to resolve this today, but do you have any strong opinions on what ought to be done?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to put my thoughts together on this, because I see every single
one of these amazing people's points. And it's just hard to figure out what my beliefs are and what I would want for my child and what I would want for my families. I work in a school, and I have parents that come to me after these school shootings and say, what can we do? I don't feel like my child is safe. I don't feel like things are being done. And to not have an answer for them is hard. To not be able to say, I can ensure that your child is safe is incredibly difficult. So again, I just think that we need to continue the dialogue, continue working with our politicians on a daily basis, and keep those politicians that don't believe in gun safety out of our office.
So you believe there should be tougher gun laws,
Absolutely.
and that's what needs to be done? Okay, you're done. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Well, I would just say, on a really strong note, I think the NRA has an unbelievable amount of power. And I think that they've made it into Congress and they've made it Trump. I can't talk about it. But when I watch him and I listen and I see what they're not talking about and what they've done every single time is say it's not the gun, it's the person, and it's not this. But the reality is when you go back and really look at the majority of these school shootings, those kids do know how to use the weapons. Most of them have had them for years because they've been in their homes. They have access because of their parents. Most of them did not buy the weapons, by the way. They had them in their home. They had access to them because their parents had access to them. They have thought about these things, not in a complex and positive way, right? But these school shootings, many of them are well thought through in the sense of like there's been dialogue going on for months with these kids that are talking about it, and they are telling people, we just haven't been listening. So if we don't change the gun laws and we continue to let the National Rifle Association continue to put their money in there and stop it, that's where the problem comes, and it comes every single time. And that's why when we talk about the youth coming up and stepping forward, they have to make change. We can't accept that they just continue to say, well, we'll talk about it later, or, oh, when it's a voter year. You can't. It has to make a change now, and this is why these young people need to be involved, and we need to take a stand and say, no, this is not acceptable, and we will not allow them to continue to have guns all over the United States for no apparent reason, with weaponry that you can kill people in how many minutes? Seconds, right? So that's my stand, is I think we have big corporations that have really stepped in, and they are in control, and if we don't do something, it will continue to spiral, because they'll continue to say it's not the person, and it's, and we're not going to go anywhere.
Do you feel like NRA is one of the culprits?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No question.
So there's an Australian comedian, and I'm not going to remember the name right now because my brain's not functioning super great. Yes, what was it? Jim Jeffries. And he's talking about how in like the 1990s or late 1980s, there was a shooting in Australia, and the Australian government was like, all right, no more guns. And Australia as a community were like, right, okay. And then he compares it to the US, and there's a school shooting, and the government's like, oh, okay, maybe we'll just take away the big guns? But then that also never happens too. And I do agree that there's violence that is not just perpetuated by guns, that there's violence in schools through a variety of different mechanisms. And yet, none of those other mechanisms, to my understanding, cause the degree of intensity and trauma and death as guns. And so I still am not understanding why we are allowing assault rifles to be commonplace. And I say this from the stepdaughter of a guy who never really had guns, didn't really like hunt at all, but his brother did. His brother passed away, and in the will, all of the guns went to my stepfather. And that's his connection, and it's like this emotional thing for him, and now he has guns, and he uses them responsibly. I don't necessarily know what that means, right? Like, to me, maybe responsible gun use would be like, there's a reason for it. But you don't need these, and they're locked up and all of that. But at the same time, I get his emotional connection to it, right? And he's like, I don't take away my guns. And I'm like, you didn't, this wasn't a thing for you until 5 years ago. So I don't know. I have a lot of back and forth there with our right to have whatever we want to have and have whatever sort of media comments we want to have, right? If you're talking about Second Amendment, you also need to talk about the First Amendment. You should be able to write whatever song or create whatever video. It's not about the violence in the media either. So I think that it's so, and we're bringing up all of the different points this is coming from. And I'm totally lost myself in what I'm saying. But if we do regulate age, also, this was another thought I had, I drank before I was 21. Those age limits don't necessarily mean anything. And sure, even if we completely said there's no, you can't get these bigger guns, you can't do this unless you have a hunting permit or whatever, people are still going to have access to those things. And so those are just some of the thoughts I've had right now. And I'm sure there were other things, and now I've all just lost them. So.
Wow, thank you for sharing. Any other opinions over here? Did you have an opinion you want to share? Okay.
Okay. So I'm assuming that all this shooting is there's students shooting students, right? And so if if all the students in a school were somehow evaluated, looked at, all right, would that reduce the gun violence? I don't know.
Thanks for letting me join late. I guess I've been here in the United States for a while with everyone else trying to experience this. And obviously there's guns that are causing the violence, but the guns can be here or not. I don't know that'll affect my life a lot. I don't use guns a lot. But it seems like this is symptomatic of something bigger, something kind of American. And it feels to me that it's something about a loss of identity and interconnectedness amongst people. Whenever I do evil, it's because I have no longer identified that you and I are somehow connected. And obviously Dr. Block's speech helped reinforce that, but that's what I've been thinking for a while, that there is a disconnect and a lack of identity, and how do I become connected and known in this world? Well, put a camera on me, tell my story. I mean, I'm having to assume why there's motivation behind these shooters, but it seems that there's something symptomatic there that has a connection to not being connected. And I think if, obviously the guns make it easy to kill people, and I'm not saying we don't restrict the guns, but it seems like there's something very symptomatic here that's, that we should look at also.
So you don't believe tougher gun laws or cracking down on violence in video games, that's really going to be, that's really going to help?
I think that it could help, but I think that the symptom would bubble up somewhere else, and wouldn't it be nice if we couldn't begin to address the symptoms? I think that the gun thing has become its own animal, and each time we attempt to stamp it down, it gets 10 times bigger, and so there's got to be a way to somehow address that in its own way that doesn't frighten all the people who are afraid. That's fear-based, isn't it? It's the government going to come in. I can understand the fear. Governments have come in and taken over people who aren't armed. I understand that. And I think that wouldn't it be, guns are meant to kill people. I mean, that's what they're designed for largely. Wouldn't it be nice to live in a world where we don't have machines that are meant to kill people? I'm okay with that too. But I think that each time we try to stamp it down, it seems to grow bigger and bigger. And but so I think there's something in the missing thing that is the source thereof that is perhaps missing. So we can address this, but let's not miss what's causing the symptom.
Okay, thank you. How about over here? Were you ready?
I I think we'll get paralyzed if we wait for the perfect solution. And when I'm working with somebody treating their anxiety, I don't wait to find the one thing that's going to cure all of their anxiety. We try something and it helps them, and we try something else and it helps them. The kid yesterday didn't use an assault rifle, but that doesn't mean assault rifles aren't a problem in our society. But I think we have to start taking steps to get to where we can have some kind of effect.
Well, now I'm happy that I'm hearing all these opinions, so I'm much more calm now. And you are saying, and some other people also, the things I was thinking already. But my view is that, of course, you should have more strict gun laws. It's stupid even to discuss should it be or not.
Of course, it's a no-brainer.
Why on earth would people need to have access to all possible guns? But of course, yes, there are people who are having like a shooting hobby. There are many people in Finland also who are having not shooting hobby, but I meant hunting. And we do have quite many guns in Finland, but we are having only a very few school shootings. We have had 2 actually, and they were 10 years ago about. So I have nothing more to add, but yes, sure, you have to do something, and that's a good place to start, to have more strict gun laws. And I don't know about the details, how that should be done, but that absolutely has to be done. And then I also think that it would be valuable to find out about other countries. And if I'm right, I'm not sure, because this is not really my subject, but if I'm right, I've understood that in Canada there is not the least so much school shootings than in here, and they are having much more strict gun laws, if I've understood right. So there are certainly things that could be done, and I see that you have a history with these guns, and that's probably the big thing. But yes, start from somewhere, and then let's see what can be done after that.
So other countries have had stricter gun laws. It works there, so maybe it ought to work here. Y'all agree with that?
So I think that, like, what's your name? Dirk. Like, Dirk said that if you try to help a client that doesn't want to be helped in that way, it's not going to work. So if we spend resources and money and time and energy trying to take the guns away from the half of the US that wants the guns, it's not going to go anywhere. But if we go to the source, to the connectivity, to the families, to the to making sure that every student is evaluated for that connectivity, to providing those resources, I think that the amount of people that are going to fight against that is much less than the amount of people that are fighting against don't take my guns away. But does that make sense?
Yep. So more people are going to fight against don't take my guns away, then we'll fight against, hey, let's find the solution under that. It's not really guns.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm hearing you say? Do y'all agree with that?
And taking the guns away might help. I just don't think it will happen anytime soon, because there's half of the U.S. that wants their guns.
Okay. So anyone else that didn't get a chance to say something would like to say something?
Yeah, for 9 years I worked with boys in corrections, and probably 80% of them had shot at another human in their life, okay? And I worked with probably 700 boys. So 80% of them had shot at somebody, 0% of them had bought a gun legally or used their dad's or went through any legal channels. So the problem with the idea of gun control is people still get guns, just they're the wrong kind of people, right? That's the main argument, is if you take the only people that are gonna turn in their guns to get crunched up Australia style is legal, like law-abiding good citizens that say, yes, I'll abide by what you're saying. And then the people that have the guns still are the people that we are afraid of in the first place. My other thought is there are a lot worse weapons than guns. And people that have violent tendencies, like Neffy's saying, the root issue that they want to hurt other people. That's the messed up part, right? The disconnect. They want to hurt people. You can go to Walmart right now, go on Google, look up how to make a pipe bomb. I mean, this is graphic, I'm sorry. But you can go to Walmart and for $10, you can make something that's going to kill 25 people in 1 second. You know? When the shooting in Las Vegas happened and people were like, how could they let this happen? He killed like 12 people, or I don't remember the exact number. And that just proves how desensitized we are, right? And my first thought was, well, if nobody let him buy all those guns, he was still psycho enough that he wanted to hurt all those people. He could have planted bombs around the square where they were having their concert and killed a lot more than he did, and injured a lot more than he did for $50. That's a heck of a lot cheaper than an AR, you know? And so I think really getting to the root of the disconnect, why are people so okay with hurting people? Personally, I don't have any problem losing automatic weapons or handguns. I don't use them, personally. I'm just saying I don't think that that's the solution to the problem.
Okay. So what I'm picking up is we're in agreement that there shouldn't be violence, okay? But we're not in agreement about exactly what we ought to be doing about the guns and the video games and the, you know. Anyone else over here have a opinion they want to share?
Well, I feel fear, and naturally my response is flight or fight, and I feel like I would want to run away, or fear-based, I would want to fight back. And what is the first thing I would think about to fight back with? Guns. And what would I do if I ran away and holed up somewhere? What would I have to come to my protection? Guns. And so even my human response to fear involves guns.
Wow. So are we going to come to a solution here today, an agreement? No. Jenna, you were mentioning that. It would be nice if you can give her the mic. I'd like to. Are we going to?
Probably not, but it was a good effort.
Okay. Now we're going to shift here in just a second. I noticed that now you want to join the group. I'm going to give you a voice.
Dying. Okay, so I am a social worker for a school district, and I provide therapy to teens. And I'm listening to everybody talk, and I do think the easy access to guns is an issue, but that's kind of like an outlier. A lot of my kids, the biggest issue for me anyway, a lot of my kids, they don't know how to handle stress. They don't know how to handle problems. They come into my office like the world is literally ending over things that, to me, are like there's an easy solution. I think I was talking to somebody yesterday. One of my kids, she's failing her class, but she doesn't do her work. But she doesn't understand the correlation between my not turning in my work and my failing my class. She feels like her teacher's out to get her. And so she's crying in my office. Like, she's in my office every week because she doesn't understand why she can't get her grades up. And I'm trying to get her to understand if you do your work and you study and you pass your test, your grade will come up. And she's like, I am, but she has so many missing assignments and she's not studying for her tests, but she feels like her teacher is out to get her. And a lot of my students, they don't know how to cope. They don't have the tools to handle stress, to handle problems. And maybe, I think, I don't even see him. He was like, do you think the cell phones, the non-human contact, how things are going these days? Maybe. But I know that kids that don't know how to handle stress become adults that don't know how to handle stress. And that's why I say guns are an outlier, because when you don't know how to handle your problems, they become overwhelming for you. And when they become overwhelming for you, you try to find the quickest solution to solve them. And if the quickest solution for someone who doesn't know how to handle their problems are to instantly get rid of them, and a gun is easily accessible to you, that might be a way you might use to get rid of your problem. My students do not know how to handle problems. They don't know that issues come to make you stronger and to prepare you for change. They don't get that.
So it's not about the guns, it's about coping.
I think the guns are a part of it.
The guns are a part of it, but it's about coping, you're saying, coping
I believe that. When I tell you a lot of my students, they don't have those tools. And even when you try to help them learn the tools, I have kids that they'll sit there, they'll go over their issues, you'll kind of work out coping skills, and then they'll come back week after week still with the same problems. And you're like, well, did you utilize the coping skills? No. Well, what did you do? I didn't do anything. Did you, have the conversations with your parent that we talked about? No. Why? I was scared. I didn't want to. I didn't know what they were going to do. And I've had to involve parents, and even the parents were like, well, I don't really have time, and so on and so forth. So I think, I'm not saying that that's the issue. I'm just saying that for where I'm sitting, for the kids that I deal with, their problems become insurmountable. They don't see the end. They don't see that problems only last a certain amount of time, and then they're not there. They don't see that in 5 years, the issues I have aren't going to be my issues anymore. They don't see that. They see what's happening right now, and for them, it's everything. Everything. They don't see how to get past that.
Okay. I want each of you to notice in your bodies right now. You got any body tension? Just shout it out. Where's your body tension right now? Chest, stomach, neck, shoulders. Okay. We're a group here. Our mission was to discuss and see if we could come up with some possible solutions to this gun violence. And Jenna, I think you said we're going to get there today? We're going to get into agreement here? It doesn't look like it. Okay. So this is what is the collective identity system here. Okay. You sense a divide? Can you see that? Sense what's happening here? Let's shift to the next map. Okay. And this next map, in the center of this map, we would just like to put down what is preventing natural functioning. What is preventing? We're all, everyone here, was there anyone that didn't feel any body tension? We all had this body tension, and we can sense our individual identity system's overactive and also the collective identity system here. So what is preventing natural functioning? And we can either just go one at a time, or you can just speak up. I just prefer you speak up if you'd like. So what do you think is preventing natural functioning?
I mean, just tons of really big requirements, right? Like, people shouldn't die, Like, this shouldn't be a problem for us. This should have already been solved long ago. Like, we shouldn't still be talking about this. We should come to an agreement. Sorry, tons of shit.
Okay.
People shouldn't die.
Okay.
This conversation makes me terrified. I picture my 6-year-old at school, and I can't be reasonable when I'm thinking about a threat to my kid. So I'm not reasonable.
Sounds like Shark Tank, so I'm out. Oh.
I would say for me, it's the same thing. I have an 18-year-old and I have a 14-year-old. And so as a parent, your kids are supposed to be safe, period. They should not be going to school and have to worry that they've got to push a desk up against a door and hope they don't get shot through it.
We're still back on the first map. Do we want to go to the second map? We want to go back to the first map? Okay. So what's preventing natural functioning right now? What's preventing natural functioning?
Our depressor fixers.
Okay.
Fear.
Fear? Okay. What's preventing us from natural functioning here as a group?
I said the depressor fixers. Like it's a never-ending cycle between what should be done, what is being done, yeah. So I think that's stopping us from our natural functioning.
Okay, so you don't think the solutions they're coming up with are going to work? They're like fixers?
Yeah, and then it turns into storylines.
And it turns to storyline. Okay, we hear lots of stories about what's happening, the fear, the what you said. It was good.
People won't do what we want them to do.
Say that again, please.
People won't do what we want them to do.
People won't do what we want them to do. We don't have control.
And I think that I had my identity system so much going on, and I couldn't actually listen I couldn't hear properly what others were saying, because I was so messed up with my own opinions to say loud them.
Yeah, so you could really feel it in there, and that was preventing natural functioning, and it's like, okay.
I think ultimately there's a lot of requirements, and our identity system is being challenged.
So our identity system is being challenged,
that's causing
a lot of requirements.
Yeah.
Our identity as a group's being challenged.
Yeah, which then the depressor or fixer of the whole.
And so that you feel like that's kind of, so we're wanting to kind of analyze it with MBB language here a little bit, okay?
Yeah, my system was totally activated.
You got it going, huh?
And sometimes I find that when that happens, I don't want to talk. I'd rather just...
You clam down.
Yeah, I clamp down.
That's why you wouldn't say anything.
So I felt like there were a lot of opinions and feelings expressed as facts. And that's very confusing to me.
Okay, so that when we put things out there as facts, okay, their opinions.
I just feel that whatever my opinion is, it's not going to be heard, and so.
So you feel like you're not being heard.
Yeah.
And you felt like you got drowned out, and that prevented your natural functioning.
Yeah, because what was said first, this has gone on for so long. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Something just kind of sparked for me. Some of you said, when I feel this way, I don't want to talk. And then others said, I don't listen. And then that in and of itself, right? Like, no one's going to talk, no one's going to listen. And therein lies, this struggle. And I think you brought up a really good point of like this depressor fixer cycle, where I totally felt that. It was like one maybe thought came out of, let's try this. I think this might be a way to move forward. And immediately, we jumped in with like, yes, but, that's never going to work. And so we just got caught there. And when you're caught there and we're not listening, we were not connected to each other. We were not connected to the net, right? And we're going to stay in that same exact place, even though we're all here from, our different experiences of health professionals and social workers and all of that stuff. And all of us here probably want, beauty and peace and safety from humanity. And yet we were able to activate our collective identity system pretty intensely on something that, like, the requirement for us is that everyone should be safe. And we all probably felt that, and that's probably all of our biggest requirements, but not listening, not talking, and getting caught in that eddy of depressor and fixer did the trick.
So some people aren't saying what they really think because they don't feel like they're going to be heard. Some people aren't talking, some people aren't listening.
And the people who did talk, and I'll speak for myself, like when I was talking, I don't think I communicated what I wanted to communicate, ultimately.
So I wasn't able to say what I really wanted to.
Yeah, it wasn't effective.
Okay. What else is keeping us from natural functioning? Anything else?
I feel like, I hope I'm using the right terminology here because this is new for me, but I feel like there's a little too much duality in our thought process, right? Either guns, no guns, right? It's a complex issue.
Either or.
Right. It's a complex issue, and people are complex. crazy or not crazy? Well, it's not that simple, right? Just like you were saying, it's not always mental illness. It's not always bullying. It's not always dad's gun. It's not. There's no simple answer.
Okay. Yeah, I'd want to add something before we move on.
I really agree with that duality. Like, as soon as somebody states one side of the argument, it's just natural for somebody to state the other side, even if I'm not like super opposed to what that person's saying. Like I've done a lot of motivational interviewing training, and you know, if I take the argument for change with a client, they're going to automatically take the argument for not changing. And I saw a lot of that in the group where, you know, I may not feel super strongly about one issue, but if somebody says that, then I'm automatically just kind of thinking the opposite with my eye, especially when my eye system's going.
Okay, so people taking opposite sides of the issues. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next map. And it's map number 3. And let's just go ahead and erase this one. It's on camera. And in the center, let's just write natural functioning. And I'd like you all to get comfortable in your chairs. I'd like you to feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat in the chair. Hear the background sounds. Focus on those background sounds. Continue to do that. And take your fingers and feel the fabric of your clothing. Keep focusing on the background sounds. Feel your feet on the floor, seat in the chair. Once you're beginning to feel settled and you feel like your identity system is beginning to rest a little bit, give me a little wave. Keep focusing on the background sounds, and as Nikki writes, watch the ink go on the board. And I'd like you to once again share with us your thoughts. As Nikki writes on the board.
I'm really appreciative of all of the people in this room who care so deeply about our world. And regardless of those thoughts and opinions, it's obvious that we all care and are connected to that, and that's what's standing out to me right now.
Yeah, one of the first feelings I noticed when I quieted down was like I just felt sad, you know, and like I felt pretty tired too. Like that's kind of a draining, like process to argue, you know.
It really occurs to me we all want the same thing. We all just want safety.
I was sad too. I think I just realized that people are always going to die, and it's something that's certain. And as sad as that is, we'll just have to find a way to live with that, to weave, for those of us that are left behind, to weave that into the fabric of who we are in our communities.
Okay, thank you.
I also felt the sadness and I was very touched. And I understand that this is really a big or even huge challenge and problem you are having in your society. And I just really want to say that don't lose your hope. There are things and there are steps to be taken. Yes, I know there are many sides of the stories, but there are many things that can be done, and you are able to do that, and you can learn from others' experiences also.
I guess my thoughts are that there's different ways to get out of the identity system. One is bridging, and the other sometimes is shock or trauma or significant events that make us speechless. And a thought that came to my mind is our society, our world is often in the I system, unconscious, and sometimes it seems like it takes significant events to have to come into consciousness to align, otherwise we suffer. And that kind of feels like what these events are. It's like, a smack to the head that says, oh. And so in some ways I'm kind of hopeful that where we're having this struggle or going through this because it feels like perhaps just part of the process, something we can help in, hopefully we can alleviate some of the suffering, but I just felt somewhat hopeful that maybe it's part of a process that has to occur, that since we're doing it unconsciously, it's more painful, but maybe it is something we're evolving into.
Okay, thank you. Others?
I had this feeling yesterday when it's Hannah, right? When Hannah was talking about that day last summer, right? When you really felt connected to the net, and as she was sharing yesterday, like I was standing against the wall, and my whole body just had goosebumps. And my brain wants to hurry and analyze why is that, and I just tried to really just feel it, And after we bridged, I know my mind's like, this sounds cheesy, Chase, but as I'm sitting here in the group with you guys really trying to bridge, I feel goosebumps, I feel like I'm connected to something just bigger than me, and I'm not a very spiritual or religious person at all, but there's something when I practice these practices, and before this training I haven't been regularly doing bridging, hardly at all personally, very rarely. But I'm just reminded how powerful actually doing the practice is.
So any other thoughts about, go ahead.
I'm reassured when I think about our conversation yesterday about the pinky finger, because I had some thoughts come up during this third map of my identity system, those storylines based on that requirement of people should be safe and we shouldn't need these events to wake us up. And I'm noticing that these thoughts are still there, and that identity system is trying to capture me once again. And then as Chase, you were saying, coming back to not just my own experience bridging, but tapping into kind of this collective, which I can feel. And then the thought is, well, what good does this then do? There's no solution on the board. But if the experience of just this is creating a shift or an impact in this larger net, like the pinky finger, then that's okay, and that's good. So
there's not a solution up there.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But the shift there gives you hope.
I am hopeful, yes.
Mm-hmm. Others?
So I kind of feel like I'm more able to look at solutions than to be so wrapped up in the emotions and the overwhelming feeling of what could happen or what has happened, but like we've talked about, being here in the present moment and what we can do now, and just being able to listen to others' perspectives and not get so ramped up about where they're coming from.
Okay, thank you. Others?
Yeah, we talked earlier about the 2 minutes of positive interaction with our kids, and those are kids we love. And I hope mine's more than 2 minutes, maybe 3, right? And what about each other? What about strangers? We are so disconnected. We took 1 minute with Kevin's direction, and we're all connected in a net, right? 1 minute. The disconnect is clearly a huge societal problem. And, when I was in college, I did a little social experiment of my own, and I would smile at people that I was walking past on campus. And some people looked at me like I was a friggin' weirdo. And some people looked at me like I was a perv, I don't know. But it was really interesting to see the reactions, because some people looked at me like it was the first smile they had from a stranger in years.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Anyone else? Well, we need to wrap this up. Was this outcome dependent? Was our goal to come up with a solution? The mission of this group could be to discover a solution. In what map are you more likely to find a solution? Map 1 or map 2? Or map 3? What do you think? Map 1 or map 3? Do you think we were going to get, Jenna said, no way, we weren't going to get there on map 1. How about now? Do you think if we were able to stay in natural functioning, that we might get there long enough? Yeah. Let me show you a few slides here. This is kind of the process. There we have the collective identity system functioning, okay? You probably heard each other. Some of you noticed the depressor, the fixer, the storylines, requirements. But you'll notice that I didn't take time to point any of those out on the map, because we don't need to do that in the collective work. All we need to do is recognize and experience our overactive identity system as a group. Once we did that, we shift to map 2. What is preventing natural functioning? Sometimes we call it what is preventing a solution, but we intentionally called it what is preventing natural functioning. Because our goal was not to find a solution. Our goal was simply to do what? To recognize and rest the identity system so we could be connected to natural functioning, to the net. To the net. Anyone here not experience that connection with the net? That's something you had to feel and experience. I forget your name. As Sierra, I know there's your name. As Sierra spoke, I found myself tearing up. I'm the facilitator. Social workers aren't supposed to cry. Why was I tearing up? Some of you are tearing up. Yeah. So we don't have to point those things out. All we have to do is recognize it. We then go through this process, and you'll see the group make a shift into natural functioning. And as you can see, that it takes a little bit of time for this process. Okay? And as we go through that, we shift down to the collective natural functioning. These collective MBB interventions are based on awareness, knowing, and doing. Awareness that we have an identity system. Awareness that we have a collective identity system. Awareness that there exists the net of existence. That we are connected with each other. Knowing what it feels like when our identity system is overactive. Knowing what it feels like when the collective identity system is overactive. And then doing the process as a group, the maps together to experience that shift. Awareness, knowing, and doing. There you go. Awareness of the tension. You notice that, I mean, a lot of people had ideas, but the discussion wasn't going anywhere very fast. I keep looking at Jenna because she's the one that says, this isn't going to go anywhere. No, that was actually good. Doing collective MBB mapping to liberate the collective natural functioning. Did we do that? Did we accomplish that? Did we liberate the natural functioning? Did you feel that? Doing collective MBB practices to change culture. So the therapeutic action here, once again, this was brought up yesterday, is simply to recognize and experience, recognize and rest. Be aware of the counterproductive nature of the collective identity system, being able to collectively get into natural functioning as a group. There you go. Collective natural functioning is optimized in accordance with the circumstances each moment. And we had Rob over here. I happen to know how he feels about some of these things. I happen to know I probably better be careful what I say because I know his history. But I happen to know he likes guns. And he hunts. But I saw a shift here. I saw a shift here. And I saw people come together and say, you know what? In natural functioning, we can work together. And the collective natural functioning, like natural functioning, is not outcome dependent. So we weren't trying to get a particular outcome. I didn't know how this was going to go. Had no idea. You know, afterwards I'll wipe the sweat off my brow. Why have a personal MBB practice? So important. Just so you know, I'm an emotional guy. I'm related to Rob. Just so you know, this morning I did several maps about this. My identity system was way overactive. It was way hot. And so it was really important for me to be aware of my own personal biases, my own personal feelings, and as aware of my own identity system, because that's what creates my biases. That's what creates my strong reactions to things. And when I'm able to recognize my own identity system and rest it and be in natural functioning, then I can be with you fully. The function of the presenter is simply to do one thing, to free up collective natural functioning. Now, on map 1, it was important that I allowed that topic to come out. And we were all being really nice about it. We're trying to be good social workers and whatnot. But as we went on, more of this came out, the true feelings. And had we gone longer, maybe even come out more. It's okay. It needs to get hot. It was hot enough that we drew 3 additional people in the group. You left. We drew 3 additional people in the group. It got so hot. It was like, I have a feeling I want to sit here. I want to say something about it. Okay? Really, really good. The hotter, the better. Okay? But then you make the shift to the other maps. And then you experience the collective shift to natural functioning. So, we can also address culture change in this way, as we learned yesterday. Okay? Integration of the I system model into your culture. How do you do that? It starts with a personal MBB practice. We teach people around us MBB. We help them learn MBB. We get people to do MBB. And then we have experiences like this in important meetings where we have decisions to make. We do this process prior to making a very tough decision. We do personal maps, and then we can do a collective thing. So you don't have to do personal maps before the collective thing, but you do when there's a conflict. Say, guys, let's do a collective map. We're working in Chicago. Myself, Nikki, and Dirk, and Isaac, and We had some other people there, and Dr. Block. And Guy. Thank you. My mind goes blank. And we had a conflict. It got hot. And Isaac says, we believe in this stuff? Do it. So we sat down. We did a map. We did a map. It was huge. It was big. And we could also feel shift in that natural functioning. Okay? So as you can see, this is how it works. And then once again, I'm just going to leave that at that. So thank you so much for your participation. Let's give these folks a big hand.